Twister.
All right, guys, here we are, and the man, the myth, the legend, and I can't tell you how many of my friends have been like, oh, do you know Joel? And I'm like, no, who's Joel? Because if they're not on like social media, to me, I'm like, where can I find more information about him? And so like all of my friends, Bedros Keuilian, Ed Milet, Grant Cardone, Lewis House, they all kept referencing Joel Marion's name, and we were able to connect at the Empire Mastermind, and that's where we're at right now. We're in Chino Hills, California, and Joel was kind enough to volunteer his time, fly all the way across the country to be able to sit and share a lot of the tips, the tools, the tactics for identifying your vision, pursuing your goals, and achieving it with an emphasis, I would say, on marketing in general. So without further ado, a guy that I'm really, really looking forward to nurturing a relationship, and a guy that honestly I feel like really has a lot of the same passions in life, and that is freaking Joel Marion, buddy.
Hey, thanks, man. It's such a pleasure to spend some time with you and have a conversation.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many things that like looking back on your life, going back to like high school, and then where you're at right now, and then kind of comparing and contrasting that to my own life. We're both like incredibly deep-seated in faith, really, really centric to family. But we want to live a really, really big life. Like to you, for me growing up, it was almost kind of like my parents were super religious. We were very engaged in the church. When I talked about wanting to drive certain cars and live in certain homes, my parents, without really knowing it, made me kind of feel bad that I wanted to live like an extravagant lifestyle. Did you ever have anything like that for you when you were a kid? That you were almost kind of ashamed that you wanted to live this massive life?
Of course, and it's not even that. And I think in my early childhood, because of where I came from, lower middle class, I lived until I was about 13 years old, I lived in a $80,000 house. 80,000, that's like what you spend on a car these days, right? Yeah. Like this is where I lived in Trenton, New Jersey, which was a slum.
I didn't know you were from Trenton.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've done a lot of philanthropic stuff there, man.
Yeah. Well, as you know from being there, it's not the greatest area, right? So, we moved into the suburbs of Philadelphia when I was a teenager, but still, again, very lower middle class. My dad was a bus driver. My mom was, a executive assistant at a pharmaceutical company, but she made like $55,000 a year, and my dad made not very much as a bus driver. So yeah, well, you always have these dreams and aspirations, but I didn't really talk about it a whole lot because I thought it was so unrealistic for me.
So you had massive dreams when you were a kid?
Yeah.
My mom's a bus driver right now.
Yeah.
Like she's probably driving the bus right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I had these dreams that, like internally you have them, but I never really talked about them because everything else around you is just kind of suppressing that belief that, hey, that's for them. That's not for this family. That's not for. Both parents didn't go to college. My brother, I have older brothers, 2 years older than me. He didn't go to college. Barely graduated high school. Took a very different path in life than I ultimately did. So I had a lot in my family and my personal life that was kind of stacked the odds against me for, like breaking that family mold and achieving something greater. So definitely, yeah, I've very similar as you. I had big dreams, but I almost suppressed them and internalized them without talking about them too much, because I just felt like so many people on the outside were pushing that, like, hey, that's not for this group of people. It's for a select few, but. Ultimately, it was in my heart. It was in the core of who I am, and it's ultimately why I decided to venture out and pursue that.
It was interesting when you said, kind of like having that inner dialogue with yourself when you were talking about, well, it's for them. Like at what point, what was the paradigm shift or the mind shift for you that took you from it's for them to it's for me?
Yeah, so it really comes back a lot to do with my faith. And as I was a teenager, I started to be encouraged by a number of different pastors. The first book that I ever read cover to cover was Joel Osteen's Your Best Life Now.
He's the
And,
man.
yeah, love
He's been
Joel.
catching a lot of heat, but I freaking like that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's so genuine to me.
So genuine, positive, wants to hope, instill hope and inspire people. I love the guy. You know, they say he preaches a watered down gospel, but he points people to Christ, man, and that's what it's all about. But I see these pastors who, and I don't think Joel necessarily is an abundance pastor. He's not preaching about financial stuff constantly, but his message is really that there's something bigger out there for everybody. And I got that message throughout, that God wants his children to live big, to be able to impact big, and to be able to, or to impact big, you have to live big as well, right? So I was getting that in church, and little by little, as I was a teenager and kind of coming up, and as I was entering to college and trying to figure out, like, what is my ultimate career path going to be, then I started to believe more that this is for me, because I'm a child of God just like everybody else. Doesn't matter where I came from, doesn't matter where I started, doesn't matter what my parents or my brother did. My first line is, I'm a child of God, right? That's my dad, and this is for me.
So you started sort of Biotrust. I mean, how many businesses right now are you actively or non-actively involved in?
Yeah, so I own and operate 2 companies. One's an information publishing company where we publish in the health and fitness niche. That's actually what I did before Biotrust, and then I rekindled it after doing Biotrust for about 6 years. So Biotrust is kind of the main one that I've been known for the last 5 to 6 years, where we built that company very, very rapidly, from a team of 8 people to over 150 people in the first year to now over 250 people. That's supplements, obviously. That's my main thing. But I do the information publishing, and I love that aspect as well, because I get to put out some other stuff in my newsletters, some inspirational content, which is really where I believe God is pushing me in that direction to inspire others. And I've done it for a long time in health and fitness, because as we were talking about before, I had my own personal transformation, was kind of the catalyst to me wanting to inspire others for health and fitness. And then achieving my dreams and living the life that I live in other areas outside of health and fitness, you just want to share that with others, because that's for everybody, right? And like, hey, I came from next to nothing, and this is what I was able to achieve. And so many other people have these limiting beliefs that are placed on them by other people all throughout their childhood or whatever, and they settle into these average lives when God has so much more. But people aren't being taught to go after it, right? So that's kind of where I'm at now, and I appreciate the avenues that I have to be able to, promote that message. In the information publishing business, we send out a daily newsletter, but once a week we focus on inspirational content, which has been really exciting lately.
It's like, as you're talking, you were saying, people are accepting these self-limiting beliefs, because people can't place limitations on you. They can project them on you.
Sure.
But it was your decision whether or not to accept those self-limiting beliefs. And it's any person that you have an interaction with, any person that's walking the face of this planet right now, people are going to project limitations on them of what they're capable of doing, what their intelligence level is, what their talent level is, whether or not they even have a talent. But it's up to that person, like the person watching this on YouTube and the person listening to this on podcast right now. It's up to that person whether or not they want to accept that. Because if you accept that, then you are predestined that is going to be your life. And that's why I love doing this podcast, because it gives me an ability to connect with people like you. And I mean, I didn't even meet you until yesterday, and I didn't even know anything about you until probably 2 months ago. And the first Instagram video or post that I ever saw was you outside of your home, and you were talking about, I mean, it was just like the entire 60-second video was just so gratitude filled, and it was so authentic. And you were talking about the blessings that you have in your life and how you're able to leverage those to take a whole bunch, I think it was like 17 people to Africa with you. And you can tell when people are like faking it to make it, and get the likes and get the shares on Instagram. But I saw your video, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm going to be friends with that guy, because I saw the genuine heart to serve. And great, it's awesome that you're a Christian and you're faith-based and everything. but I want to be around people that want to be for other people. So when you were saying earlier, about 2 minutes ago, you talked about, well, that's my main thing, like Biotrust, and supplements is your main thing. Like, I know you know that it's not your main thing. Like, your main thing is what you're doing right now. Like, that's what, and it's kind of like, it reminds me of me, because I want to become so impactful and so, not successful, but prosperous and influential in other people's lives that they forget that I ever played in the NFL. And it's not like it's like a bad thing to be associated with, playing in the NFL, being a Super Bowl.
It's part of your story. It's part of your platform. It's
But I
part
don't
of
want
your impact. Yeah.
But you, like the same way that
It's not your ultimate destination, but it's part of the road there.
It's what I did, not who I am. Like supplements are what you did, not who you are. And I'm so excited to be able to support and just watch from the sidelines of what you're getting into right now, which really kind of leads me into, like, that was your career.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing now?
Yeah, so you said it right there, like that was my career. I'm at a point professionally where I truly do feel like I'm moving from career to calling, right? And
That's a book, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the name for you right there.
Career to calling, it's an exciting time because I've been fortunate enough to build some pretty exciting companies, some that generate a lot of income that we gave back. We've helped a lot of people, but I always felt along the way that there was something more out there, and there's nothing wrong with helping people get healthy. There's nothing wrong with helping people get fit and live a better, a healthier life and have more longevity. But I felt like I was given all these gifts to build these followings, right? We have 16 million people subscribed on the Biotrust.
That's insane, by the way. Like, I'm like so proud. Like, I have 300,000 emails at the time of this podcast, and I'm like super proud of that. And then you like come in,
it is an accomplishment.
You're giving your delivery, and you're like, yeah, I've got 16 million, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this guy like 56 years old? Like, can I use the excuse he's been doing this a lot? I mean, and you have.
Yeah.
But
it's been 6 years building that, but obviously we had over 1 million within the first year, right? So I have the skills, through my marketing prowess that I've worked very hard to develop. I have the skills to develop these large followings, and we've done it through email. I recently did it with Instagram, by using the same skill sets to build a different following on a different platform that 4 months ago I knew nothing about. I didn't even have a personal Facebook account. I was on social media in no way, shape, or form, and it's not really a big part of our business. Email is such a big part. So I had to learn something new, but I learned it very quickly. And again, I believe God has given me truly God-given abilities and special gifts to be able to build this platform and these followings. But I wasn't doing anything to impact people beyond this lifetime. Sure, get healthy, get fit, live a better life while you're here, but what about what's next? We're preparing people for eternity. And the thing that woke me up to eternity, I heard a pastor was speaking, and he said, it's mind-boggling to think about what eternity really is. So let me try and just give you a little bit of an analogy so that you can wrap your head around it a little bit more. And he said, okay, imagine that there's a beach. Imagine a white sand beach. And once every 10,000 years, a seagull comes by and picks up one grain of sand and flies away. Eternity is the length of time it's going to take to get every piece of sand. And it's only happening once every 10,000 years this bird comes around, right? That's eternity. And then that sunk in, and I'm like, man, this life, and you hear it, it's a blink of an eye, right? It's an instant. But that's when I was like,
the metaphor makes it so much more clear.
Yeah, I'm like, that's so much longer than this, right? So much longer. And if we're missing that, then we're really missing the big picture. So I started sending, when I got back into e-publishing and my info marketing business, once a week, I would send out an inspirational newsletter. The very first one that I sent, and again, because I come from a position of faith, was about miracles. And it was to inspire people who were going through challenging situations that, there's a God that's bigger than your struggle. And
You posted that a couple of days ago, and that freaking hit me between the eyes.
Yeah. So that was the very first news that I posted that recently on Instagram, and that was the first newsletter that I sent out to my health and fitness list, we're casting a really wide net, bringing people in with health and fitness, right? No one's signing up to receive devotional content or any of the inspirational emails that I'm sending. So this was the first one I sent, and I was very apprehensive about sending it because of that reason. I was thinking, well, they didn't sign up for this. How's this going to be received, right? So we sent it, and we put at the end, if you have, are you going through something and you want somebody to pray with you, just hit reply, and one of my team members is going to be there, and we're going to lift you up in prayer and believe with you. God's going to turn your situation around. We had the list was only around 60,000 people this time. It was the very first month that we got restarted, and we had over 400 replies to that. Our normal newsletters about bananas or next best food for a flat belly or whatever might get 20 or 30 replies to it. This was 400 people replying, and the stories and the feedback that came in from it, was just like,
it's heavy.
Yeah, that's when I realized, okay, I need to be doing more than this. And I even sat back and I apologized. I prayed and I apologized to God for taking so long to get here. But I said, look, I can't change that. I can't change the past. I can't change, what I didn't do up until this point. But for darn sure, I'm going to go forward and I'm going to make this the biggest, baddest thing that I can, and I'm going to grow it faster than I've grown anything before, because I'm already so behind.
But you're equipped though. So if you think about like having like global impact, and like I'm getting excited just sitting here, hearing you talk about it, because there's so many people that have the same passion to serve that you do. There's so many people that have a great story. There's so many people that wake up and want to have Martin Luther King type impact on the world or Gandhi type impact on the world. It's feasible for you to do that because you are a master cult creator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now you're creating a cult for Christ, and it's
the
exciting.
day and age that we live in, right, with the internet as well. It just makes so many more things possible that were not possible for many, many years prior to the day and age that we live in today. So that's one of the most exciting things is that everyone's a click of the mouse away, right? There's people tapped into this online thing everywhere, globally. A lot of places don't even have clean drinking water, have the internet though. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've gone to Africa. I built, it wasn't for Pencils of Promise. It was for, after we won the Super Bowl, we flew, well, I say we, it was me and the AV department for the Giants and myself. And we flew over there. It was about, I think, 4 or 5 Giants employees. I was the only player. It was like 3 weeks after we won the Super Bowl. We built a clean water filtration system, like a water well there, and then helped them build the foundation for a school. 10 days later, we flew out, and I still have Facebook Messenger conversations with the chief of the village. No internet, they have no electricity,
right.
but he Facebook Messengers me. And it's just, you're right, man. It's like you and myself included, not to the scale that you're doing it yet, but like I got big dreams and aspirations too for global impact. And
that's why we're getting aligned, bro.
There's faith, there's my family, there's fitness, and there's philanthropy. I call it my 4 F's, but I know philanthropy's with the P. I've been hit in the head a few times, but not enough to think. But that's why it's exciting for me to align with somebody like you, because you're going to do that. Like you're a doer.
Yeah.
You're not a talker, and that it just goes to show you, because you didn't join Instagram until like April or March or something. Right. 4 months later, you're at 1 million. I've been on Instagram for, I don't know, probably 8 years, and I have 300,000. But in addition to growing like a massive following, you're growing a massive following that is interested and enticed by your new mission. You know what I mean? And that's like growing the kingdom and honestly, like letting people know from somebody who has, you have more money than you can spend. Right. You know what I mean? Rolls Royces, houses, traveling, that's great. But what are you doing right now? Like you're using that money to help grow your Instagram so you can have a positive impact in people's life. It's one of the most selfless things that you could do, because you have like a long-term vision for that. It's not just to get likes.
Yeah. It's all about the impact too. Yeah, we talked about this in the mastermind yesterday. Yeah, I'm sure I do things to incentivize people to like and comment and all that, but it's not about so that Joel has 1 million followers and Joel gets 40, 50,000 likes every post, or Joel gets 2,000 comments. I know that again, coming from the marketing background, I have the end goal and the outcome that I want to have, and then how do I work with the system here to get there? Well, I know that the more likes and the more comments and the more engagement that I get on a post, the bigger organic reach it's going to have. So if I want the maximum number of people to be influenced or impacted by this post, then we need to do something to help, work with the algorithm to drive up the likes and the comments so it gets in front of more eyeballs. And the same thing, I told this, our mutual friend Vince Delmonte, I was sharing this with him because he's doing some really cool things and looking to grow his impact. And I said, Vince, you're just moving too slow, man. Like whatever you think you're capable of doing.
I love Vince. He thinks a lot, though.
Yeah.
He's a thinker.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever you think you're capable of doing in the next 6 months, just like triple it, and then let's figure out a plan for how you're going to get there to do that, instead of setting these like very, slow going, very attainable goals.
Realistic,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
Realistic goals, right?
But we all do that in our lives, like Vince is not. I mean, he's very successful, but he's not. He's not different than anybody else. Like he overthinks things. I overthink things.
Everyone has their fears, doing things that are outside of their comfort zone. And for me, Instagram was totally outside of my comfort zone. I have an Instagram account. Didn't really know a whole lot about it.
Sending that salvation goal, was something that was.
Right, exactly, and that was the catalyst. Yeah, that was the catalyst for me getting involved with Instagram. I had built a newsletter list up to many hundreds of thousands of active subscribers, and it was Easter season, and I said, all right, I've been sending out this weekly inspirational content, which I was very direct about my faith. I'm dropping scripture verses in there, and I'm pointing people back to God in every message. But I hadn't gone anything so direct as to, talk about salvation. And I sent this newsletter out, which took some courage to do because, again, I didn't know how it was going to be received or if people were going to think that, how if it would be coming from a place of condemnation or something. So I was very careful with how I put the message out there. And it really was truly extremely authentic. I'm a sinner saved by grace. I've screwed up probably more times than you have. Doesn't matter what you've done or what you didn't do. We all need grace. And this is what this season's about. And I went into the Easter story. And at the end, I gave a salvation call. If this message hit home with you and you want to surrender your life to a higher power who truly has your best interests in mind, pray this prayer. And I have, the sinner's prayer down there at the bottom. We have 4,000 people respond to that. 4,000, and it took me so far back because I think about some of the mega churches out there, which is probably 95% churchgoers and believers who are in the audience. And here I've been blessed with this secular audience that's probably flip-flop. 90 to 95% aren't churchgoers, or maybe don't have a faith background, or never even really had anybody tell them, right, or you hear about it. Obviously, it's part of our culture, living in the United States, but never really explained to why that God loves you. You're a child of God. He has big plans for your life. He wants the best for you. But first thing you need to do is accept that and turn to Him and let Him direct your steps. So we have 4,000 responses, and that's when I was like, man, we're able to make so much impact doing what we're doing because we're casting this wide net with health and fitness. We're bringing in a lot of people who may not be from a faith-based background, and we're able to instill that in them. So after that happened, I was like, man, I got to get into some other platforms, some other demographics, because email tends to skew a bit older than the social channels, which are a younger population. So that's when I started Instagram, and then I post daily inspirational content. A lot of it is faith-based, some of it's more entrepreneurial, and but it's really about just like, hey, living a life of impact. I'm getting ready to launch a podcast called Born to Impact, which is all about becoming the person that you were born to be, that you're destined to be. And so many people, Ed Milet talks about, our friend Ed Milet says, so many people, they never negotiate their price up front, so they don't know how far they're willing to bend. And at some point, it gets too hard, it gets too many obstacles, and they give up on what that dream was, right? And I talk about this a lot, that God didn't put dreams in your heart for you to not ultimately realize them and achieve them. He also didn't put them in your heart for you to just be handed them. You have to put the work in and do what it takes in order to get to that ultimate destination. But that destination was put in your heart from the beginning when, people have dreams as a teenager or as they're entering the workforce, or what ultimately how they want their life to be or the type of impact they want to have. And they settle, somewhere along the line, they settle for average because the going gets a little too tough, too many obstacles, they get told no too many times. And really, all those things are just no's for right now. And when I was chatting with Biotrust earlier, I said, we're all dealt the hand that we're dealt, right? We can't change the cards. We got the hand. But in the game of life, there's really no other players. You're guaranteed to win unless you fold, And the point is, you just got to stay in the game and keep going.
Talk to me about that tattoo that you have on your arm. We talked about it earlier. I love that verse, but I want to know, why did you get it and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I have a tattoo here that says freedom and surrender, and with the scripture verse, Psalm 118:5. And basically the scripture verse says, God, in my turmoil, in my agony, I turn to you and you set me free. So this is a reminder to me, because obviously being a go-getter out there, and running a business, and you have 250 employees, you are in a position where you got a lot of great stuff happening, but you also got a lot of problems to deal with, every day.
More money, more problems. Right. Who said that? Was that B.I.G.? Hey, you know what? You've done well for yourself. You probably do have a lot of problems.
Well, when you're running a company like this, you wake up and seems like it's almost every day something's going wrong. And then some days you have instances in which it's very major, and it's, for example, we were at one point in time, we were running $3 million a month on Google AdWords to a couple of our sales funnels, and that was a big part of our monthly revenue. We're generating almost as much revenue, probably a little bit more. So you're looking at $3 to $4 million a month of revenue coming into our business, which at the time was probably at least a quarter of the revenue. And wake up one day and we got Google slapped. Our account got banned. And no reason why.
So the
I didn't really understand.
don't work anymore.
So the ads aren't running anymore. There's no revenue coming in. There's no site visitors coming in off that. Overnight, yeah. So then you're dealing with a situation like that where you're trying to get in touch with somebody at Google and you're trying to get somebody to help you get your account back up and active. And maybe after a few weeks of having 3 weeks of stressful days, finally you get that right contact and you catch the break that you need and they reactivate your account. But I have found over and over again when situations like that arise and when these major obstacles happen, your first reaction is to get incredibly stressed out, and then you start worrying, and then things don't get fixed immediately, so you start stressing more.
At what point do you interject the victim mentality? You know what I mean? Why is this happening to me? You know what I mean?
And that's natural to feel that way, especially in the initial stages of something like that. But I have found over and over and over again, once I finally stop trying to figure it out myself, and I say, God, this is major, obviously. This is causing me a lot of stress and a lot of turmoil right now. I would prefer not to deal with it.
In a perfect world, God, why don't you go ahead and take care of this one?
Yeah, I would prefer not to be going through this, but I understand whatever you're trying to teach me here, and maybe the lesson here is just to rely on you faster and realize that I'm not in full control of everything, and I may not be the one to fix it on my own. And by surrendering, these difficult situations to God, and in my personal life as well, not just business, we all go through tough times and hard times. And I've learned that if you can just surrender and leave it at the altar and say, God, this is bigger than me, I cannot solve it on my own. Small problems like, I'm thirsty, I go get a glass of water. I don't need to consult God on that decision for him to, ultimately hydrate me. But on these bigger things, it's God, I think, is tapping, on our heart and on the glass of our life and saying, hey, remember, maybe you're getting a little unfocused here, and I'm going to insert something in your life to make you realize that, one, there's going to be other purposes to build and refine your character. But I think the major reason why we go through some of these tough times in life and these tough obstacles is for God just to bring us back to Him and recenter us and realize that if you trust me, I'll take care of the details.
So what about the people that are watching this YouTube, listening to this on podcast? How do you know, like draw us a picture of the difference between surrender to God and giving up? Because it could be misconstrued.
Yeah, 100%, and that's a good point, because when I talk about surrender, it's not like, hey, God, it's you, I did everything I could, and if it doesn't work out, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. It's, I'm casting my cares upon you, I'm taking this worry that I have, I'm not gonna worry about it anymore, I'm gonna do what I need to do to keep trying to, resolve the situation, but it's at a point, I'm at peace with it now. That I can go, because I was sharing with you another instance where we had to move email carriers and we're running into all these problems with email delivery.
It's a powerful story because you're extraordinarily successful, but like the story that you're about to share just happened like 5, 6, 7 months ago.
Yeah. So we're moving email providers to this massive list of millions of subscribers. And we're kind of forced to because of another situation that happened, very bad customer service and with the other provider that we had. So if they didn't, I'm like, man, if they didn't do that, I wouldn't even be in this position. So I'm pissed at them for the reason that was the catalyst that we had to move. And now things are not going smooth with the move. And back end of our business is half our company revenue is email marketing. So I was in a position where I was the guy who heads up the email stuff, so I was the one who needed to work through this transition and fix any problems that came about. But the problems were not being fixed, and it seemed like every day it was getting a little bit worse. And every time we tried to do something, and there were, maybe we fixed one small aspect of it, then there would be another problem that crept in. And for me, I'm running a $100 million company, and I just got to a point with it where I didn't know if it was going to turn around, and I was became so distraught and honestly depressed. My wife just saw the stress all over me all the time. It was affecting my family life, my relationship with my kids, how I was disciplining my kids, how I was interacting with my wife, because I just had all this stress weighing on my shoulders. So obviously, I was not interacting with them from a place of peace and love. I was interacting, with them from a very stressed out position. There were points during that, it was about a 3-week stretch that this all went on. And during that time, again, it wasn't getting better. I wasn't seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So before long, I just didn't want to get up and deal with it anymore. I was in bed and I was sleeping till noon or 1 o'clock. Not legitimately sleeping, but just not getting up.
Just is it worth the fight type of thing?
Yeah. And finally, I just had one of those moments where this whole time I'm all stressed out and I'm not even thinking about even having a conversation with God about what's going on, And it wasn't until I had that conversation and I said, you know what, God, I'm truly at the end of the rope here on this situation. I haven't felt like this in a really, really long time. It's affecting all aspects of my life, and I'm feeling pretty down, pretty depressed, and unmotivated. And I don't want to feel this way. Lift this from me. And if you can help push things in the right direction in any way, I would love your help, And God was like, oh, thanks for asking. And then 2 days later, everything started to improve. And it wasn't maybe a week after that where everything was good to go again. And actually we got a lift. Here's the crazy part, right? Because we had a certain open rate, which obviously led to a certain amount of revenue that each email was generating when we were with this other carrier. They insert their dumb decision, which caused us to move to another carrier because we weren't going to do business with them anymore. And went through this 3-week transition period where we're losing money every day. I'm stressed out. And then I turn it over to God. He helps accelerate the resolution. And next thing you know, our open rates are higher and we're making more money from email than we ever made before. So the 3 weeks where we got the revenue hit was just within a month, we were ahead of the game than if we had never dealt with that situation in the first place. So that was God saying that, look, not only am I going to help you through the hard times, but I'm going to take the hard times to deliver you into something even greater.
Like the struggle creates the strength.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were talking about, kind of like bringing home a lot of the emotional baggage and the stresses that you go through when you're building a business, and you've already built a bunch of businesses, but here you are figuratively on the mountaintop, like by comparison to a lot of these other email marketers and master marketers and just mastermind business empire studs.
Yeah.
Like you're at the top of it, So 7 months ago, you're going through, probably what would be considered as like a midlife crisis type of thing, in bed for 3 days, massive depression. I've been through that as well. And I think the more people like you talk about it, the more people like me talk about like hitting like these massive lows, like people would think, what the heck does Joel Marion
People
have
think
to
that we're
complain
immune
about?
to it, yeah. Just
But I
because
think it's
we've achieved-
powerful,
Yeah.
for me to achieve like some of the stuff that I've achieved. That's honestly, I never thought I would do some of the stuff I'm doing. And I'm sure you're probably pretty similar situation. If you thought at 18 years old that you would be where you're at 18 years later, I would have a hard time believing you if you said, yeah, I absolutely knew I would be where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like I just wanted to play in the NFL one time.
Yeah, that's the thing about goals, right? Is that they're always growing and they're always evolving, and it's like a muscle. You work the goal until you hit it, and then it gets stronger, and then that allows the growth to occur in your mindset as well to allow you to shoot for a bigger goal. I remember, and I was sharing this story with someone just recently, when I had my first book deal with the book that didn't end up not doing so well, which caused me to get obsessed with online marketing and figure it out on my own.
Struggle to strength.
Yeah, when I got that first book deal, my goal for my income was to make $20,000 a month. If I could just make 20 grand a month, dude, I would be so set. Like I'd be living the life. And this is coming from being a school teacher making $42,000 a year, right? So 20 grand a month was
what
like
subject?
phys ed.
Goals, man, goals.
So I'm a phys ed teacher doing this writing stuff on the side, and my dream is to make 20 grand a month, right? So I get into my info marketing business and put in all the legwork, and I didn't really know where it was gonna go or how quickly it was gonna go. I just knew that I was going as fast as I possibly could, and let's see where the chips fall. I was making 20 grand a month. I made more than 20 grand a month the first month, all right? And then it was like, all right, I just want to make 50 grand a month. And now, the goals are much different, right? They keep evolving, and it's not just financial, it's the number of people that you want to impact and all that. I'm setting these, what most people would consider extremely audacious goals to grow a 1 million person Instagram following in 6 months. That's what I told Craig Ballantyne, our friend. I said, he texted me because he saw me get on Instagram, and I had a couple posts up, and he found me. I didn't really even announce to other people that I was doing this. And he said, dude, I'm so pumped you're on IG.
And that's exactly how it was. Dude, if you guys don't know Craig is about like 5'6", maybe 5'7", but he's a powerful guy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when he walks in a room, he's got a powerful presence, and he's worked with you.
He was my first business coach, over a decade ago. So he messaged me and he says, bro, I'm so excited you're on the Instagram. He's like, now I can see what you're doing all the time, because we keep in touch, but obviously we get together here and there and we catch up, but now it's like we're a part of the daily lives.
Because I mean, you put a lot of stuff on Instagram story, which is like behind the scenes stuff that nobody
my kids,
knew about
my family,
you before.
exactly.
That's what turned me on. Like I watched that one video that I saw on Instagram. Like the first video I saw was you just being so thankful for your life and leveraging to give an experience to your closest friends and family to take them over to Africa. And then I'm looking at your other posts, and it's just like family, faith, fitness, family, faith, and it's like it's powerful to see somebody in your position like unapologetically just sharing.
Yeah, well, those are the things that are most important to me and closest to my heart, and I believe that these are truly the areas that matter. So just to close the loop on the thing with Craig, he's all excited about me getting on Instagram, and I said, dude, I'm gonna build 1 million followers by 6 months. And this was like the third day, you know? I said, by 6 months, watch. He said, dude, if you say you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. So here, 4.5 months later, here I am, and we hit 1 million followers.
You'd probably be at 1.5 million.
Yeah, soon. Right. So, you know, the ability just, and the inner strength that you have to put these goals out there that, you know, I would never make a goal that big 10 years ago when I was just getting started in business. Even when we started Biotrust, the goal, or when we have this written on a sheet of paper with our company goals for the first 12 months, was to do 10 million in sales. We did like 88 million or something like that, and by the first full year in business, we were well over $100 million. So when you start achieving some of these things that are beyond your wildest dreams, then your dreams start getting wilder, you know?
Well, it empowers you to shake off even more and more of those self-limiting beliefs that you have created, or limiting beliefs that people have placed on you. One thing I wanted to revisit, because I want there to be like something strong for the people that are listening and watching to be able to take away. So you were talking about the really, really difficult time that you went through 7 months ago. You know, business was not going well. You're feeling lost, depressed, can't get out of bed. What if somebody is listening to this or watching this right now that is feeling that same exact way? Maybe they're laying in the bed or they're driving in their car to a job that they hate. Mm-hmm. What would your advice, or what would you say to the person that's listening to this right now that is feeling lost and kind of in the drift of life?
It goes back to exactly what we talked about, and that, you know, there comes a point where you need to realize that there's going to be situations in life that you cannot overcome in your own strength. And that's where we have to tap into something different, something bigger. And, you know, the verse that comes to mind, obviously, is that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's not I can do all things through me. You know, I can do all things because I'm so great. It's I can do all things through Christ because of him who gives me the strength to overcome situations that I would not otherwise be able to overcome on my own. And for people who don't come from a faith background, I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that believe in God. If you ask, I think whatever the latest poll was for people that believe in God in the United States, it's like well over 90%. Doesn't mean that their life lines up with it, or that are really it's a big part of who they are, but there is the belief that's there. And I would encourage you, if you are feeling that way, and if you're at a point where you're at the end of your rope or you're at your wit's end, maybe it's time to turn to something that's stronger than you in your own strength. And like I said in that post about miracles, there's a God out there who's bigger than your struggle. He's just waiting for you to recognize that, tap into it, ask, and then boom, it's your delivery is right on the other side of that.
How do people tap into it, and how do they ask? Like, how do they, I'm reading your arm again, freedom and surrender. Like, for people that are feeling trapped in their own life, you know, you talked about like, well, what do they need to hear right now? And you're saying, well, I want them to know that at a certain point that you're at your wit's end, you have to tap into something kind of like creating a goal. Like, if your goal is freedom, the last thing you think you need to do is surrender. Because if you want freedom, you have to fight for freedom. That's what we're taught from a very young age. That's why we're living in America, and it's a free country. Why is it free? Because we freaking fought for it. Like, I didn't, and you didn't, but the people that came before us did, and the people that are in the military right this very moment are fighting for our freedom. So if somebody wants freedom in their life, freedom to be happy, freedom for fulfillment, freedom for impact, what do they tap into, and what do they do?
Yeah, so freedom is really, in the context of this verse, is really about finding peace, you know? And it doesn't mean that the situation is necessarily going to change overnight, or that it may not change at all. There's people who get diagnosed with cancer, and unfortunately, they go through a certain period and they pass away, or a family member or something like that. Doesn't necessarily mean that everything's always going to work out in the manner that you believe that it should. It simply means that you can have peace to know that God's in control and he has your best interest in mind. So no matter what happens, whatever the end result is, There's a reason for it playing out that way, as long as your trust is in Him. So to answer your question, how do you tap into that? Most people think, it's like this super sophisticated thing, especially people who, maybe come from backgrounds that are much more traditionally based as far as their ideology of what church is. And guys like you and I, we believe in relationship, not religion. And how do you tap into that? You ask, You can talk to God. I can talk to God right now and ask Him about anything that I want. I have a relationship with my Creator, and I can tap into that just as quickly as it is that I can pick up the phone and call you, We have 24/7 access. God is just waiting for us to call His name and to say, hey, how about engaging in that conversation with me? Because I can help here. And when people can just be authentic and realize that, hey, it's not like God's a loving God. He's like a dad. And you don't need to be fearful when approaching Him. And you don't need to be politically correct. And you can be honest. And you can tell Him that you're mad and that you're frustrated and that you don't love everything that's happening right now. But at the end of the day, if you can say, God, I don't understand it, but I know that you're in control, and I know that you have a plan and a bigger picture in all of this, and that's where I want to find my peace. So I'm going to surrender it to you. I'm going to let you take the reins and trust that however this works out, it's not like, hey, God, solve it, and He doesn't solve it, and then you're like, oh, this is bullshit. It's not real. I surrender to you to realize that in the immediate, it may not look like it's working out, but a year from now, when I look back as to why it went down exactly like it did, I'm gonna know why. In that situation with the email thing, right? It's God built my character through that whole situation, and I really had to learn to lean and depend on Him. But at the end of the day, everything was better than it was before. So if I didn't have that short-term pain for those 3 weeks of dealing with that transition, I would have never moved to this other carrier who I have a great relationship with the CEO now. I actually helped build a lot of their platform, referred tons of clients to them. We do a lot of work together. It's an amazing relationship that came out of that pretty crappy time. And that would have never happened. I wouldn't know Ross, the CEO of Marion, our email delivery system. I wouldn't have the opportunity to do a lot of the business that I've done with him. And
you wouldn't have had the freedom to be here right now.
Right.
Think about that. If you're still hung up on what was going on 7 months ago, there's no way that you would have pursued building an Instagram following and then kind of taking your career and turning it into your calling. Let's think about that for a minute. We're gonna wrap this show up real quick because I'm super thankful for your time. But 7 months ago, going through what you're going through, and then you giving it to God and continuing to work, not giving up, but surrendering the problems to God while you're still proactively working at the same wavelength and the same frequency of work, you're just not carrying that stress around with you. So God opens up opportunities for you while you're working. You end up being better off than you were when you were going through those tough times, which enables you the peace and the freedom to start your Instagram, to pursue this calling, to be here in this chair. Think about all the things that have to line up for you to be in this chair right now to tell the story.
And then the next time I'm going through that, then I have something to anchor on. All right, I've been here before.
It's another story to tell.
I've been here before, and how did I come out of it last time? I know God's got my back. Let me just, not have this intense stress and worry, do my part. And if it's not working out the way that I want it to work out or I expect it to work out, I have peace in knowing that there's a reason why, and God's gonna maneuver this situation and lead me down another path that I never would have went down anyway if it weren't for this obstacle that got placed in this path. And that's what I think people miss a lot, because they're so hell-bent on going down this path. Then there's a freaking mountain in the way, and God puts the mountain there because He don't want you going down that path anymore, or He has a better path for you. This path over here, just right over here.
Or that mountain that He placed in front of you, very similar to how He placed the mountain in front of you when your book didn't sell.
Yeah.
What did that force you to do?
Yeah,
It forced you to
forced
learn
me
marketing.
develop all my online marketing skills.
He put the mountain in front of you, and that mountain forced you to learn how to climb, AKA market. And because of the struggle of the mountain that God placed in front of you, you developed a skill that has made you successful and prosperous beyond your
I'm so
wildest
much
dreams.
better off, bro. Because here's another thing. This just goes right in line with what we're talking
Your
about.
podcast, by the way, is going to be amazing.
Thanks, bro.
My mom is going to love it too, because after like sitting here and like feeling the passion in what you're talking about, like people are absolutely going to flock to this, and it's going to be for different reasons than what people flock to the other followings that you built.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be really, really special for you.
This is unique, yeah. So what I want to say about the books thing, right? The book flop. Let's say the book did really well, okay? The book did really well, and I got the next book deal, and I was getting $100,000 advances or whatever. You know, that's what the first advance was, $100,000, which was like hitting the lottery when I was 24 years old. But let's just say that it did well, and then boom, it was on to the next book. And I was publishing 2 books a year, making $100,000, and then maybe I had some other stuff, you know, membership site or something like that, and maybe I'm making $350 a year or something like that. I would never be in business for myself, and I'd still be collecting a paycheck from somebody else who's dictating a lot of the rules for me.
And
you
they're
know,
not going to allow
stealing.
you to talk about your faith.
Right.
Because you have a boss.
Right.
You know what I mean? So think about that. Like that mountain gave you the ability to climb.
Yeah.
And now because of that ability to climb, you're sitting in this chair teaching the people that
Yeah.
are watching on YouTube, listening on podcasts, how to freaking climb their own mountain.
I'm so better off. I say it all the time. Thank God that book flopped, because I would be living at, like, if here's where I'm at, here's the ceiling of where I would be on that
Smooth
path.
that down
Yeah.
here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I'm freaking excited for this podcast, man. So before we wrap it up, I want to acknowledge you, and I want you to let people know, like you were talking about tapping in and taking action, you know, to get out of your own way. Yeah. and let God take the weight off your shoulders so you can fly. You know, you can't fly when you're carrying around weight, and, you know, talking about the metaphor of the mountain, which enabled you to gain the ability to climb. Where can people tap into you, and where can people kind of hear more about what you're doing, hear more about God, and hear more about, like, maybe this is the first time anybody's ever heard somebody uber successful talk about God the way that you're talking about God. Not just like thanking God after an NFL game, but like, hey man, won the Super Bowl, dude, just want to thank God, thank my family.
Yeah.
Like, where can they like learn?
Yeah, so I'm publishing daily my inspirational content on Instagram. So it's simple. My profile is at Marion.
We'll put that in the show notes too, to make sure people get easy
look me
access.
up, give me a follow if the page resonates with you. We're posting on all kinds of different stuff, and it's really about leadership and impact, and leading your life, right? I have posts on there about there's one post on the topic that really resonates with me is don't follow your heart, lead it, and not reacting to feelings. We talk about, I've had a post on depression, a post on forgiveness. A lot of entrepreneurial, motivational stuff about going after your dreams. And then there's faith-based messages as well. So I feel that it's a really well-rounded, holistic approach to personal development.
To life, dude.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
not personal development, life.
Yeah, it's doing life, right? It's becoming the best that you possibly can be at running your life.
Yeah.
And
enjoying
it's
too.
leadership in so many different areas, faith, obviously, family. And then your work and your professional career, and all those things kind of blend together in some ways. But we want to make sure that we hit on each one of those, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of that, and always looking to improve. And appreciate the opportunity to be on this podcast and get in front of your audience. And likewise, once we get going, we're going to have you on. And we're very aligned, brother. We're very aligned in the message that we're trying to get out there, and it's a message of hope, a message of inspiration, and ultimately helping people live that life that they were born to live. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. And if you guys, people watching, people listening, if this resonated with you, if you have someone that maybe would benefit from listening to this podcast, please share this with them. Go to iTunes, leave us a review, write a comment. That's how this show is going to grow. And we'd appreciate that. Joel would appreciate that. I mean, that's only going to further your
100%.
purpose on this earth and your impact on the people that listen to this show. But before we shut it down, man, I just want to acknowledge you for the generosity of your time and talents to be here in Chino Hills, to share with the Empire Mastermind, to be on this podcast, and to share your faith. And I want to acknowledge you for your boldness, the way that you're taking your passion and you're unapologetically sharing that. You know, to be that bold in faith is something that I really, really admire. It's something that I've tried to do myself, but there's still breath in my lungs, and I can do more.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
I just want to tell you, I appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Yeah, and likewise,
I admire you.
I appreciate that, and I encourage you too, and I'll encourage anybody else who is in a position of influence. We have this, preconceived idea of how people are going to receive certain things, or am I going to say too much here, or whatever. And I can tell you from experience, every time I just trusted God on what I felt He was tugging my heart to do, and I did it as an act of obedience, the response was overwhelmingly positive, overwhelmingly. And here I was sitting worried about it, thinking about it, overanalyzing. If you feel God's putting something on your heart and He wants you to, speak in a certain way or talk about certain topics, and you have a platform and you're in a position of influence, start doing it, and then you're going to see why, that was laid on your heart in the first place, because it's going to help and impact so many people. So I encourage people just to, go a little bit deeper. Go a little bit deeper with how you talk about the things that are important to you. For me, faith is a huge part of who I am. Family as well, relationships. And I get into that stuff, and I get into it, as you said, unapologetically, to where I'm not worrying about the 1% of people that I'm going to offend. I'm worried about the 99% of people who need to hear the message.
I mean, at the end of the day, Joel, and before we go, it's about playing for an audience of one.
Yeah.
There's like one person that we should be living this life to make proud, and that's our Creator and ourself.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're proud of yourself and you're aligned with your morals and the integrity and your purpose for life, you're playing for an audience of one. It's really not that hard to satisfy one person. It's just like when we try to satisfy the people on Instagram by putting that up there, or our mom. By the way, my mom's gonna be really proud of this podcast. I'm gonna say that again. Shout out to my mom. Mom, we're taking this thing global for Jesus. But man, I'm very, very blessed, man. I'm so fortunate to be sitting here with you and to be able to support your passion and turning this career.
Thanks, brother.
Into your calling, brother.
I appreciate it. Yeah, career to calling. That's the message here, right?
Joel Marion, the man, the myth, the legend, authentic, courageous, and bold. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Down the field, Hollywood!
Let me think about that one.
77 yards! Whoa! Who is this kid?
Lester.